This isn't a land conflict. This isn't a economic conflict.
Jews were dehumanized in the Quran. So
one of the first things that happens is you have to dehumanize the other person.
So basically he offered them 100% of the land, right, of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and they said no.
You've got a religious conflict between Iran and Israel. Israel apparently is winning the ground war. The Palestinians are winning the PR war. I believe none of what I hear and about half of what I see.
Attorney Michael Dye, welcome back.
Thank you, Danny.
And I have Attorney Lloyd Golburgh, welcome back.
Welcome to Two Taps and Friends. Grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into another episode of Two Taps and Friends.
Welcome back to Two Taps and Friends. I'm Daniel Rosenberg, hosting the show. Today I have a panel on. I like the panel that I brought on. These are guys that are regulars on the show, but I like to bring them on because, first of all, Attorney Michael Dye, welcome back.
Thank you, Danny.
And I have Attorney Lloyd Golburgh, welcome back.
Thank you.
I like to bring them on because we're talking more of the Israel issue, because it's, again, a hot topic. Things have been moving on and on. I like to bring Michael on because he gives a different perspective and he likes to give a little bit of pushback on issues, which I think is a healthy thing for this thing, and as long as it's done respectful with people that respect each other and are able to keep calm, which is a panel here of people that have great respect for each other, have worked with each other at different times against each other. So thank you all for coming on. Thank you, Mike, for coming in and being the bad guy, as we joke around, not the bad guy, but the pushback a little bit and giving the fair pushback. So I mean, listen, jump in. We just did a panel. We discussed the have you seen the Coldplay thing that's been going on? Did you saw that thing?
The affair?
Human? No, not that thing. Not the thing. Where he came on and he said, he came on and he had some Israel. There were some guests from Israel on, and they had a sign that he brought him on stage, and his commentary was basically they asked where they're from. They said from Israel, and the crowd started booing. And we talked about this in his defense. I think he was just trying to, because he's got that whole love image that he has to put out. He tried to well, listen, we're going to treat you fairly as human beings, is what he said, regardless of where you're from. Clearly, that comment caused a lot of controversy. Then he said, well, I'd like to also invite guests from Palestine on the air show. And everybody's all over him. I think the pro-Israel groups probably being a little hard on him, because of the wording, like I tell
Palestine.
Yeah, not that part too, but the part more of human, right? Imagine we played the difference hey, we understand that you guys are black people and we want to treat you like humans, but we also want to bring some white people on stage too. Imagine how that would play out. What are your thoughts on that, or how that comes across?
Initially, my first thought to it is whenever, and it seems to be, my dad was in Vietnam.
Right.
All right? And one of the things that happens is when people start getting to killing each other, one of the first things that happens is you have to dehumanize the other person.
Right.
You can't think of this person as somebody's brother, somebody's husband, somebody's, son. I'm not going to go into the names that I've heard, the Vietnamese people were referred to, but when I have some friends who served over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it's the same thing. You have to dehumanize them because I think there's a natural instinct in people not to want to kill other people. So you have to go ahead and make that person somehow less than.
Right.
All right.
And you're saying you think that the Israelis are dehumanizing Palestinians?
And I think that the Palestinians dehumanize Israel.
Right. Well,
Israelis.
But here's the thing that makes it a little more complicated. And I think Lloyd will jump in on this point too, because he probably wants to say this too. It's very hard. From an outsider standpoint, it does maybe look like a people just warring against the people, but I think that this conflict is so much deeper, right? A country versus a country is one thing, and I think that's easier to grasp, and you're right on your principles, 100%. But here, it's deeper. If I told you it's deeper, if I told you that this is a culture of Islamists, and I'm not saying we're dehumanizing people, there are women and children and innocent Palestinians that don't subscribe to the things that are being taught to them in their schools.
Just want to live a normal life.
Right, in their version of Muslim religion that they're being taught,
I wasn't
but I
talking
think
about,
it's deeper here.
I wasn't
right?
talking about the average person. I'm talking about the people who are actually pulling the triggers on guns.
Right,
Make a distinction between the people who are actually fighting the war and the people who are just the onlookers.
Well, what the Islamism, they've been dehumanizing Jews across the board, across borders, across different countries. So don't you? I find it's more complicated, don't you, Lloyd? What's your take on that? Don't you think it's a little bit more complicated here than that?
Again, it goes all the way back to the Quran. You know, Jews were dehumanized in the Quran. So, you know, Muhammad considered Jews to be apes and pigs and filth. So that's on purpose, so that you could desensitize your population when you call them to war.
Right.
Right? So this has been going on since the beginning of time, and, you know, the Christians before that. So you go back to, you know, what's the word they use? Deicity? You know, where the Christians blame the Jews for killing Jesus Christ.
Well, you know that you have that at the tip of your
So-
tongue.
Yeah,
He's
but
like,
you-
no, I don't have that at the
yeah,
tip of my
I
tongue.
can't remember
you
what the
know?
word is, but, you know, it really goes back to then because
You're representing all of Christianity, Mike. Be
Right.
ready. You know,
So
like
the church had to do that. The church had to dehumanize the Jews
Right.
in order to be able to rally, you know, the populace to be able to gain power, you know, by being able to dehumanize the Jews, saying, you know, well, they didn't believe that Christ was the Messiah. They killed Jesus Christ. They rejected, you know, the gospel that came through Christ. So that all is on purpose to other them, so that when you call on your people to come conquer, they're more likely to do it.
right.
Well, I can say I grew up in a fairly devout Christian house. My dad was, people say like right-wing Christians, my dad was somewhat to the right of Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun.
He was a tough cookie, man.
And I also went to a Catholic high school and a Southern Baptist college. And I can say that I've been around very conservative Christian people all my life. And anybody who blames the Jews for the crucifixion has a fundamental misunderstanding of Christian theology. All right? It's Christ died on the cross for your sins. And it was just the procedural steps for how he got to the cross is different than the actual reality of why he was there.
Right.
And most of the conservative Christians are very aware that they don't blame the Jews. As a matter of fact, the conservative Christians are the biggest supporters of Israel.
Now I see that. But I think
I'm making a distinction between conservative Christians or Christianity in particular and the early Catholic Church.
And I think, but the interpretations that some people, like, I think people that really understand theology, I agree with you. But, like, could you get into, and I'm just going to say, like, some of the Latin American countries or some of the countries, the third world countries, where the populace may not be that versed in the actual theology and in the actual history, and they hear the Jews, you know, Judas, that's what they hear, right? Yeah. So instinctively, they hear, and there's not many Jews there, so you get, the point is that the history for the Jews, that's why this comment is that more egregious, right? Is to be dehumanized throughout time, right? Throughout different, this is just the newest strain, Mike, of, so I try to explain to you, like, you like to get into the actual, like, the facts of on the ground, which is valid and should be talked about, but I think that without the understanding the underlying or overlying the net that has been involved and the peoples that are involved, right? The Jews have been dehumanized throughout time, and the Christianity was just, that was what they were using at the time. Like, that's pretty much dead now. Nobody's really doing that. The conservative Christians are pro-Israel because they recognize a bigger threat.
Right, that is
Islamism.
Well,
right?
and no, not only
But
that,
go ahead, jump
they
in.
have their own reason. It's nothing, nothing to do with loving the Jews.
Well, I don't think they love the
the
Jews. I'm
Christians
saying
have
they
their own-
recognize a bigger threat in Islamism, right?
Well, that, and they have their own ideas on, the coming of the Messiah.
Coming of the
believe
Messiah, right.
that when Israel
We're all going to
comes
hell,
back-
by the way, in the end. That's for
No,
sure.
no, no. It says you guys are all good.
Yeah, we're
you
good
guys
now?
got drafted in the first round.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah, we're good.
you guys are all good.
Yep, okay.
That's in the "Do not be deceived, for all of Israel shall be saved." That's in
Oh,
the
okay,
book of
we're good.
Revelation.
See,
Yeah,
I
you're
need to
good.
refer to you. I gotta get the ground
yeah.
rules. Yeah.
So, at any rate, and I'm probably gonna piss some people off that are friends with me for saying this, but
This is what we do on this show.
the the fundamental Christians who support Israel do so on a very flawed interpretation of the book of Revelation, where Israel rises as a nation again, and that's one of the first signs of the second coming of the Messiah. Now, they kind of forget that all throughout history, people have been trying to fit the facts of that day into the second coming of Christ. All right, so this has been going, people have been like, look, here it is, here it is, here it is. And Bible specifically warns, Jesus specifically says, when somebody says, oh, look, here it is, don't pay attention to them because they're stupid.
Right.
All right.
A lot of that going on.
So, but the fundamental Christians believe the second coming of Israel the coming of Israel as a nation in the 60s went ahead and fulfilled a biblical prophecy which signals the second coming of the Messiah. So they're not really Israel-friendly because they just like Jewish people.
Right, that's what I said. It's not for the love of the Jew. They have their own
agenda.
They have their own incentive.
And then you have Ted Cruz, who I'm a libertarian, a registered libertarian, so I'm not a big fan of the Republicans or the Democrats. And this idiot goes ahead and says, "Oh, the Bible tells me if I bless Israel, I will be blessed, and if I curse Israel, I will be cursed." It's like, okay, Ted, you figured out everything right there.
It's something Lloyd and I push back on that too. Whenever we get that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Brian, we have Brian comes on, another guest on a different panel, and he
Right.
likes to go into the theology and
it's valid.
it's okay,
valid.
right? I'm okay with it. It's just that I think that what people can relate to more is the objective facts on the ground.
Right, because it takes out anyone that's not really religious. It kind of takes them out of the equation.
Well, and you
Right. You
remember,
can talk faith all you want, but people are getting killed, and
Yeah,
Right.
and the thing is, what people call the Prince of Peace. All right, he's not the Prince of War. All right, so
Jesus, we're talking
this is not what whether if you're a Christian, this is not what you think. This is not what he wants. All right, because for God so loves the world, everybody, including Muslims. All right, and
Agreed. But let me ask you this: bottom line, if Israel didn't have the infantry or military, and the Muslim world got their hands on Israelis,
that would be
Christians and Jews, what do you think would happen? You think that they would set up a peace-loving colony? What do you think would happen?
Absolutely, isn't that what the Hamas is founded on?
What do you think would happen?
Oh yeah,
Honestly,
they'd kill them all.
they would kill them
But
all.
it also-
So how do you stop that?
I think would they offer you the opportunity to convert or be the DB?
I'm not
Hey,
That's
familiar
if you
with
make
tax?
it through. That's if you make it through the first
Oh,
wave
I
Oh,
of
see.
barbarians
Right,
that come
right.
through the border. 'cause
Yeah,
there's a
I'm
lot
not
of
as
those.
familiar with Muslim theology or Islamic theology. But part of the other problem is like with Iran, and I think I'm trying to remember if they were Shias or Sunnis, but their particular
They're Shia.
They're Shia. Okay,
yeah.
so their particular sect of Islam believes that the final prophet will arrive when the last drop of Israeli blood is spilled. So the thing is you've got a religious conflict between Iran and Israel, where the Iranians, or not all Iranians, but the extremist Iranians believe that they can basically force the hand of God to send the final prophet back by killing all Israelis.
Jews.
Yeah. And
Not
so
just
how do
Israelis.
you...
Yeah,
you-
but that point needs to be made. Jews.
Yeah. How do you can't reason with that.
Right. And so you understand that. So when you're hearing the criticism and you're kind of evaluating this conflict, right? That's got to be the starting point for your analysis, doesn't it?
Somewhat. Most wars have a religious origin. Even like Vietnam was a religious war.
Not like this.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Tell
Because
me about
the
that.
French colonized Vietnam.
Okay.
And then they came in there and said, by the way, all you Buddhists are now Catholics. All right?
Yeah, but Jews aren't converting people. Bad
So-
analogy.
Yeah, well,
they won't even-
I'm talking about the religious origin of it, not necessarily
Okay,
a conversion
okay,
thing.
okay.
So the French came in and said, all you Buddhists are now Catholic. That was about 120 years before the United States ever got involved.
Right.
Now, a lot of the Vietnamese said, no, we're still Buddhist. And the war started back then. And the South Vietnam was predominantly Catholic, North Vietnam was predominantly Buddhist. And that's how the war started. Now, it broke down into communism versus capitalism after Ho Chi Minh got the support of the Soviet Union. But if we would have gone ahead and paid him, he would have been a capitalist.
Right, right.
But we weren't going to take sides against the French.
Yeah, but do they have a decree of if you murder all the Buddhists, it'll bring in your Messiah? Or if you murder all the Christians, it'll bring in your Messiah?
I don't think Buddhists have a Messiah.
The only culture that has that, we're not going to sit here and shit on the whole culture, but the Islamism is a major problem, you know? So,
Well, you know, that's kind of a point I sometimes make. It's like, you know, in the Torah, it's, you know, honor thy father and thy mother, you know, don't covet thy neighbor's wife, don't steal, don't murder. In the Holy Scripture, it's love thy neighbor, right? It's love your enemy even. And in
Turn the
Islam,
cheek.
it's, you know, kill the infidel. So it's fundamental.
I don't think necessarily that the problem, like just like with the Christian church, you've got different sects of the Christian church. You know, you've got Catholicism, then you've got Protestants, and you've got a bunch of different versions of Protestant. You have Lutherans, Methodists, Episcopalians. There's a lot of different
Diversity within
points.
the religion.
Yeah, there's a lot of diversity of viewpoint in the Christian church. So, you know, the Pentecostals think that when you're possessed by the Holy Spirit, it turns you into some kind of Mexican jumping bean, and you know, which I think kind of trivializes the Holy Spirit. You know, if the Holy Spirit just makes me break dance, you know, that's kind of stupid. So,
just for the record, the Jews aren't offending the Christians here. This is Michael Dye, the Christian offending them.
and so you have very different views on Christianity with the different denominations. And I'm not as familiar with the different denominations in Islam, but I know they have them.
Oh, for sure.
So I don't think the problem is necessarily
I would push back.
Islam in
Push back on it.
general, but certain sects of Islam.
Yeah, see, I don't agree with that there. I think that you're a Muslim or you're not. So if you want to call yourself a Muslim, right, with any degree of legitimacy, that means you must adhere to the teachings of the Quran, right? That you must adhere to the dictates of Muhammad in the Hadith, right? And that you must strive every single day to meet the 5 tenets of Islam. There's no, you know, there are Muslims that are maybe a little bit lazier in their commitment, but I don't believe that there are different sects of Muslims. In order, like I said, in order to call yourself a Muslim, then there's only one way.
Well,
I would say if there are no sects of Islam, that doesn't make sense to me, because they kill each other at a rate that far surpasses.
the Shia and the Sunni.
Yeah, I mean they are constantly at war with each other.
But you're conflating two different things. They can't agree on who the prophet was.
That's correct.
Who Muhammad's successor was,
Yep.
right?
Right.
And so that's why they're at war with one another, the Shia and the Sunni. But that has nothing to do with whether or not each of them individually follows the tenets of Islam. I
Well,
think those are two different
undoubtedly,
things.
there's Muslims that aren't as, you know,
Radical.
but you know, the ones that are radical look very down on them and slaughter
Right.
those. You know what I mean? And I think the Green Prince, you know, the Green Prince is the son of one of the founders of Hamas. He's now Christian, and he really is
Mossad
critical,
Youssef.
right?
Yeah.
Mossad Youssef, and he came down. He was describing it as a ladder, like when it comes, and this is his point of view. I don't know for a fact, but you know, the more devout you get, it leads you to the jihadism, right? It leads you to the world needs to be a caliphate, and not all Muslims, a majority of them are not near that, right? And they're peace-loving, and they're just like everybody else, and they want to work, and they believe in this. He said the problem is you never know where one becomes on the ladder. You don't know how devout they get. That's why you see a lot of the clerics.
And how easy it is to go, say, from, you know, somebody who is a non-violent jihadist, right? Somebody who believes in
To
the
get
ideology,
radicalized.
supports it, but isn't necessarily willing to take up arms. You know, how easy is it and how quickly will that particular person jump to violent jihad?
Right, and that's why the clerics are saying the craziest shit. Their imams are usually the most radicalized. And the issue is you have a numbers game, right? How many Muslims are there? 2 billion or something, or 1 billion? It's
something like that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think if 10% of them are radicalized, you're talking 100 million radicalized people. So
Right, that was a point made by Bridget Gabriel, who's
Right.
that Lebanese woman.
right, the
who-
silent majority don't really, that's not who we're worried about, right? And but we don't want to get down to a point of attacking just a religion or people of a religion, but the conversation has to be had in analyzing this conflict.
Well,
This
I
isn't a
think-
land conflict. This isn't a economic conflict. Israel doesn't need the land. Israel doesn't need money. This isn't, they're not expanding their territories. That's bullshit. They're not. You're talking about what? The West Bank?
The
And you're talking-
settlements?
Okay, the settlements. But you're talking about the settlements. First of all, that's arguably Israelis. There's a whole sect of Israelis that would argue that that's part of Israel.
Yeah, well,
okay?
they're crazy.
Agreed, but that's fair if that's what you think. But Israel went and just bombed Syria, and they bombed Iran. You don't see them trying to take Syria. You
Well,
don't see them trying to
actually,
take Iran.
Golan Heights.
The Golan Heights were part of Israel. That's the argument, and it's usually for a strategic boundary, right?
Correct.
If you don't take the Golan Heights, you got to come. I invite you to come to Israel with me this summer. I'm going to Israel.
I know what the
No, but
Golan
I would
Heights
love
are.
for you to come because it'd be good. You're a smart, intellectual person. That if you put eyes on the ground there, you'll see the and you have a military background in your family. You'll see the logistical problem.
I know.
The
The Golan Heights are elevated.
You
They can,
see
like,
it.
lob
It's
it down.
literally the military 101. What's the best position to be in the military?
Elevated.
The highest point.
Elevated and shooting down. And that's what the Golan Heights are. And Syria's had control of that. So Israel's always in this heightened state. So if they have a chance to go into Golan Heights and now secure it, because Syria is not the most stable government, let's put this out there. You
No,
got
they weren't the most
Islamism all
friendly.
over there, out of their minds, right? But they're not taking over Persia. They're not, Iran. They're not taking over Lebanon. They went into Lebanon. Oh, they occupied. No, they didn't. They went in there, did what they did, and they got out, right? So that's not there. This is literally a religious conflict, and
Well,
that's the issue.
Here's the thing.
These
and-
people don't care about a Palestinian land. This is their excuse to now shit on Jews and get closer to where
And
they
if
want
they
to
had
be.
cared about a Palestinian state, remember, Bill Clinton offered
Oh, many times.
96% of the West Bank, right? And the Gaza Strip, and then another 4% of land swap. So wherever else the Arabs wanted it. So basically, he offered them 100% of the land, right, of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and they said no. And they were for 20 years, from 1948 until 1967, Egypt was in charge of Gaza, right? Syria controlled the Golan still, I believe, at that point, and the West Bank was under the control of Jordan. And so you had 20 years there where they could have established a Palestinian state and chose not to. So to say that this is a land dispute is inaccurate.
I wouldn't say it's a land dispute, but here's let's look at it throughout history.
Okay.
All right. And there's various examples of this, just and history's replete with it.
Sure.
When you take a population of people and you strip them down to absolutely nothing for whatever reason, all right, the last thing that anybody has is God. And they say, well, you know what? God's on our side, and, I'll fight for God. That's what happened when the French came in and colonized French Indochina. Drawing a blank on other examples, but there's tons
Sure,
of
there's
them that I've
plenty
given
of them.
before. Yeah.
How about the Ottoman Empire colonizing the whole goddamn continent?
Yeah.
You know?
But
Arabs don't come from North Africa. I got news for you.
no,
North Africans look a little bit different than Arabs, don't you think?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
think I
Now-
mean, the Egyptians back in the book
They
of
weren't
like
Arabs.
Genesis and Exodus.
They weren't Arabs.
I don't think they were black.
They weren't Arabs.
So
The Egyptians weren't Arabs. The Egyptians that
They
you
were
think of with the
Egyptian.
pyramids, they were Egyptian. They weren't Arabs. Arabs conquered Egypt. People don't know this.
don't get
stuff.
me going down this road, man.
Okay.
Everybody came out of, all the Arabs came out of the Arabian Peninsula. They all came out of what is now Saudi Arabia. That's where
They're
they
a
came
conquering
from.
people, my friend.
You know, and if you, again,
I agree.
if you use
You
your
agree.
critical thought, not you, I mean, if people would use their critical thought, then they would understand that Judea is to Jews as Arabia is to Arabs. The Jews came from Judea, the Arabs came from Arabia. It really boils down to
The
that.
problem with that is, and the problem with the deal that Yasser Arafat rejected was there are certain holy sites that are in Jerusalem, like what was it, the Cave of the Patriarchs or whatever? It's just I think it's by Jerusalem.
Right, but Jerusalem was not supposed to be part of either.
It was supposed to be
one.
neutral,
It was supposed
but
to be
the problem
neutral
is,
and an international protectorate.
correct, and Yasser Arafat could not accept that deal, because if he accepted that deal without those historically holy sites to his people, his head would have been on the
Yeah,
chopping
it
block.
ties to the religion
Well, kind
again.
of that, you know, the
But let me
similar
ask you
thing
this.
happened in 1948 with the war, where, you know, the people were fed a bill of goods. The Arab population was fed a bill of goods by their own leaders, you know, so that they believed that their military was sufficient enough to destroy the Jews in 1948, and they would, you know, they would come back to their homes. And what happened ultimately was, you know, when reality hit the fan, the Arab leaders had no choice, right? They couldn't back down and go, shit, you know, we bit off more than we can chew, let's go home. They went to war knowing they were going to get destroyed because they were more afraid of what was going to go on in their own streets had they not.
But and that does bring up a key point that, you know, when people bring up the Camp David peace accords where Yasser Arafat walked away, you know, they say, well, he was given everything he had. No, he wasn't. All right? There was one key provision that he was looking for that Israel wasn't willing to give, and I'm not blaming them for it, or I'm not casting judgment.
Stating facts.
All right?
Which is fine.
He was not going to be able to go back home unless he had the holy sites. And
Which are the Jews' holy sites.
also the Jews' holy sites.
And by the way, we talk about
By the way, I
Oslo.
don't think that would have happened anyway. In other words, I think that, you know, from an objective perspective, you're right, but I don't think that he ever would have accepted a deal whereby the Arabs would have had to recognize an independent Jewish state.
Well, and I mean, who was
I think that's the hang-up.
He did later on with, who was the one, got killed by a Jewish guy.
Rabin.
Yitzhak
Rabin.
Yitzhak Rabin. They had a peace deal all worked out, and then a very
religious
conservative right-wing Jew goes ahead and kills the prime minister of Israel, and then who came after that?
Who was after Rabin?
Perez, Shimon
No,
Peres?
Shimon.
Ariel.
Oh, Ariel Sharon.
Ariel
Well,
Sharon. And
he was a hawk.
But it was a time, because he was a hawk, right? He was a former general.
Yeah,
I know
but you know
don't
something,
like
Yasser
him.
Arafat is also known for saying, yeah, we'll accept the deal, it could be 10 years long.
Oh, yeah,
And
Yasser-
once we make the deal, then we're not going to...
Yasser Arafat's the
we're not
Dalai
gonna-
Lama
yeah,
himself, the Dalai Lama, right?
We're not gonna
He's
stick to it
taking
anyway.
planes. The guy's a terrorist. He literally was a terrorist who was killing people, blowing up planes and blowing up things.
I agree, but, you know, now we got to go ahead and admit this. Yasser Arafat was a terrorist. Israel's political leadership in the beginning, they were too.
Okay, very different.
Wait, hold on a second. In the beginning of what? Where? What is
In
that?
the beginning
Formation.
of,
He's saying the formation is Zionists.
Ben-Gurion,
We're
No,
terrorizing
they weren't.
the
That's
British.
not true.
what was
That-
the guy who
absolutely
we
not.
talked about
That's
last time? Ben-Gurion said terrorism
Menachem
is an
Begin.
acceptable means of expanding the state of Israel.
Menachem Begin might have, not Ben-Gurion. Ben-Gurion was a...
Well, let me
Nah,
contrast it.
Ben-Gurion
What they're
was
talking about.
Ben-Gurion was a progressive socialist. He was a farmer. He was the other way. That's where the conflict was between guys like Begin and, you know, and well, from a philosophical Jabotinsky in the beginning. You're right.
Let's talk about
there
the
were terrorists, right? What
King
ultimately
David
was
hotel bombing.
Okay, but let me
right. You have the
distinguish-
Irgun, which is what you're talking about. But that was a small group of terrorists, and their focus was against the British government.
That's
Really,
on
policy.
I don't know that one. I don't know
I'm trying
that
to
one.
remember the details of it.
But I want you to respond to what I'm saying, because you just made not only a blanket statement, but one that was inaccurate. You said that the political structure of the nascent state of Israel were terrorists, and that's not true.
No. I didn't give a blanket statement on that. I said that the political leadership, there were people in the political leadership at the
fair.
beginning state of Israel.
That's okay. That's
that were
yes, that's
terrorists.
fair. But you didn't say that.
But
So
let
I
me
just wanted to be
distinguish
clear,
some
because you're right.
terrorists.
There was a group of terrorists that broke off, that believed that militancy, that fighting for the state of Israel was the only way. Of course, there were those people, sure, but
And
they
there-
weren't
and-
the majority, and it was never official Israeli policy.
And the most hardline Zionists were the people that were doing that.
And by the way, I'm sorry to interrupt,
ahead, go
because
ahead.
this is important. And most, if not all, of the Irgun were either prosecuted, right, excommunicated, and then the ones that were rehabilitated or subject to rehabilitation were brought into the Haganah, which became the Israeli defense.
And then became prime minister.
Menachem Begin, yes, is one of
Okay.
those. I
So
agree.
it's like
Yeah, and you know, and I would
Understood,
put
but-
Ariel Sharon in that category. as
Ariel
well.
Sharon's his own category.
Are you comparing?
Yeah.
Are you comparing sabotaging railroads and trying to drive the British military out of an area. Are you comparing that to blowing up Sbarro pizzas with children eating in there, blowing up buses with civilians?
No.
Because I think there's degrees of what you would call terrorism.
There's
right?
levels to this shit.
There's levels to this shit.
Okay.
I think this is barbarism.
But
I think I'm saying that
the
wrong.
King David Hotel massacre,
That's
all right?
a bad one.
That's as bad as walking into the
They got
Sbarro's Pizza.
prosecuted, all of them, though. We didn't give them awards and name cities after those
One of them
guys.
became prime minister.
One of them, I don't know, but I'd have to dig more into that to be able to like argue with you back on that. But I don't dispute, what you're saying, and I'm sure there's things that have been done on both sides. But I think as a modus operandi, I think you would have to go with the Palestinians being out of their fucking minds in how they do things. And first of all, let me address
They
the
do
one
more.
point. What you said was when you strip a people down to absolutely nothing, they go to God. I agree with that statement. Now, what do you say to the 2005 where they gave them all of fucking Gaza with the greeneries and the infrastructure? They handed them everything, Mike. And this is indisputable.
2 points I want to make.
Go ahead.
Number one, and we can touch back to this.
Go for it.
The terrorism was not limited to the beginning of the state of Israel. You had that guy who walked into the soldier. He was a doctor from
Yeah,
New York.
he's a nuts.
He walks into
he's
the
in
cave of the
prison for the rest of
patriarchs
his
and
life.
mows down like 80 people with
He's
an
in
M240.
prison for the rest of his life.
No, the Arabs killed him. They beat him to death with a fire extinguisher.
The other guy that did something like that.
And then they put up a statue of him in the settlement.
Okay, but this
They
people
have a
are crazy.
memorial for him.
I'm not defending the settlers, okay? I think the settlers, they have their reasons for being the way they are. I think that they're fanatic, and the majority of Israel does not like them, all right? Thinks that they start a lot of problems because there's the majority of Israelis want peace, have always wanted peace, and they look at them as the extreme wing. It's similar to the extreme people we have in our fucking country. They're like, all right, these guys are lunatics. Stop making trouble. You're giving them food
Well,
for
I
fodder,
think that's part of
right?
the thing. It gets glossed over, the distinction between criminals, because every society has criminals,
Yeah, these are
right?
criminals.
And some official policy of the government of Israel.
But why does, when an illegal settlement is set up, the hilltop people, all right? An illegal settlement is set up, and then somebody from one of the Palestinians in the West Bank takes a pop shot at the settlement. Instead of going out there and saying, you guys are idiots, this is an illegal settlement, we're going to take it down.
That's what they do, actually.
They send the Israeli
bulldozers.
military out there to protect them.
No, they don't.
Oh,
They actually arrest the perpetrators and they destroy their settlement. This is what I mean.
That happens from time to time, but there are lots of incidents, and I'll pull some up. Don't worry, I'll do the research. Yeah.
You know
But
me, I've already got 2 points.
there
The bombing
are-
of the King David Hotel and the settlement
No,
issue.
it's good. It's good.
So, but there are
I
multiple
think it was either
incidents where
Tablet
there's.
magazine or Commentary did a very good expose on the issue of the settlements. I'll pull that. You'll like that.
The thing is, there are
objective.
multiple incidents of illegal settlements that got protection from the Israeli government, and there's multiple incidents of settler violence on the local Palestinians
100%.
who then get the protection of the Israeli government.
100%. Understand what you're
And
saying.
that's not right.
Understand what you're saying. The issue is that you have Israeli citizens in these areas, and the government's complicated in Israel because it's a parliament.
It's a parliamentary system.
It's complicated. You got these Ben Gvir schmucks, and you have these fucking Smotrich, and these guys that are all these like pro-Pali fucking guys are throwing out this name over and over again. It's complicated. There's mixed. There's complete huge debate. A lot of people don't like Netanyahu in the country. That's fair, and that's in every free society. But hold on, let me touch on a point. Another thing is, so they have all of Gaza.
Okay.
You know the first thing they did?
Well, the first thing that they did is the Israeli settlers burned down all the settlements that the Palestinians going to have them.
Okay. No, they didn't. That's
Yes,
not
they
true.
did.
First
It was
of
on-
all,
it was on the news
all right,
all the
I'm not
time.
talking about that. I'm talking about in Gaza.
Yeah.
They left the greenery. They started all this infrastructure, the agriculture. Do you know what the first thing they did was?
No idea.
They burned it all down and said, we don't want anything to the Jews.
Okay.
All right, but I'm sorry, but that in a vacuum, that takes away the point of like they have absolutely not. They've been given. And by the way, if you really search for real videos of Gaza, this open air prison prior to them picking a fucking fight they shouldn't have picked, right?
I've seen it.
It was they were fucking fine in Gaza. They had plenty of fucking everything in Gaza. They didn't want to stop there. They wanted more. Let's go to more. The other issue, like people say, well, how come we can just make the country just one big country and make everybody citizens of one big country? Because I'm sorry, but the Islamists are a conquering people.
Okay,
And
look,
they-
if people want to kill you, I don't think you should make them members of your society. I'm okay with that.
Agreed. And you got 5 million now. The refugee number went from 500,000 to 5 million. I wonder how that fucking happened, right?
Fucking damn.
Right. Us, a lot of it, okay? And people importing people into the area to create a bigger narrative. The Oslo Accords, you recognize that, right?
Yep.
They got Bethlehem, they got Jericho, they got all these areas. You know Bethlehem was 80% Christian at the time it was handed over. Do you know what that number is right now?
Probably 0.
It's 20. It's flopped.
Okay.
So this is what this culture tends to do, okay? That's they want to take over.
Well,
right?
Lebanon was supposed to be the Christian state over there, and then we see how that turned out.
You know who has to escort you to Bethlehem if you want to go see the birthplace of Jesus of Nazareth? You know who escorts you?
I don't know, but
I
think
guarantee it's
anybody,
not the
IDF soldier.
Palestinian fucking Authority.
I'll tell you, anybody who goes to that is a dumbass, because I'm not going into the middle of a city where people want to kill me.
No, you're gonna come
right.
visit me, and
I'm
you're
not
gonna
going to
go.
Bethlehem.
You're gonna go with me.
I'm not going to
and we're gonna
Bethlehem.
have armed guards from the IDF take us, and you're gonna put eyes on this, and you're gonna have a better picture of this
I will not
conflict.
go to Bethlehem, man. You can go. All right?
I don't want to go. I'm good. I've seen it.
It's like, I'm like, okay, yeah. Look, first off, from what I've heard, there's like 10 different churches in that one church there, and every church says that Jesus was born
That's true.
in the one spot in their church. Okay?
The best pizza in New York.
Right.
It's like, I forgot who the guy was, but when Caesar came to see Judea, he was like, I want to see where Jesus was crucified. And, you know,
They're
you
like,
didn't
"That's
tell
complicated."
You didn't say no to Caesar because you're going to get killed. So he's like, there.
Right
and
there.
I want to see where he was
Right?
baptized.
See
That's
that
it.
bush behind it?
Yeah,
You just-
I mean, just, you know, I don't think any of the sites bear any, you know, semblance of real, you know, it's not realistic.
Right.
You know, we don't know where Jesus was born. We know about where.
Right.
All
Now,
right.
last couple minutes, I want to talk to you about propaganda. All right. You're a very intelligent person, probably one of the more intelligent
appreciate
people I know. All right. And you don't just buy shit, right? Obviously, you're subject to certain things that you don't know about, and you probably can get duped about certain things that you don't dig into, right? But when you dig into it, we called Michael, just so you know, Lloyd Boy Wonder for research. You're another Boy Wonder with research. Mike likes to get in when he gets in.
Yeah.
If it's a topic that he cares about enough, he's going to dig in. He's going to give you all sides of it, which I think is good. When you're seeing this propaganda, you're seeing the starvation, and you're seeing some of the, you know, let's put up, Dan, real quick, can you put up the photo of the, yeah. So, New York Times put this spread up, right? Did you see that photo? It went around New York Times, 50 million viewers. This
Nope.
wasn't exactly it. It was this woman holding this baby,
And
No, I
they
didn't
cropped
see
out
it.
the
and
toddler.
they cropped out the other side, right? Now, this baby, they said starvation in Gaza. Put it on New York Times, plastered it everywhere. Everybody was all over it. Turns out this baby has cerebral palsy. This is documented, okay? It's been treated in Israeli hospitals at least 3 to 4 times. This is not because of starvation, all right?
Okay.
This brother was
Yeah,
cropped,
his brother looks
was
fine.
cropped out of the shot.
Yeah.
Right. And the
What
New
do
York
you
Times
say?
ran that on
and
their
to
front
Lloyd's
page.
point, if there is starvation, why do this? What's your answer to that?
Okay, first off, when it comes to the news, if I'm not going to go ahead and do my ADHD deep dive into what I'm looking at, I believe none of what I hear and about half of what I see.
Right.
All right, because everybody has an agenda. And so here's what I know about what's going on over there right now. October 7th happened. That was bullshit. Israel has a right to defend itself. Israel apparently is winning the ground war. The Palestinians are winning the PR war. That's all. That's my opinion.
Right.
Yeah,
but
you're
when
right.
you- when you
Your
see
opinion
this,
is right.
wait. When you see this, you see. So you don't buy this, right?
No.
Obviously not. Okay.
I mean, I don't even know that's in Gaza.
Right.
That could be in Afghanistan for all I know.
Or Yemen.
Yeah.
Right.
Anywhere.
Right. Dan, can you put up the photo of the Israeli hostage? All right. Does that look like starvation to you?
He looks kind of skinny.
Yeah.
He might have. I mean, he might have HIV. I don't know.
He's the hostage. I don't know his
Okay.
name. What was his name, Lloyd? Do you remember his
Ilan,
name?
I think. Daniel,
Ilan, I think. I don't remember his name.
Daniel.
It looks like he could use a cheeseburger.
Look at the arm of the captor.
Okay.
Does he look like he's malnourished, the arm of the captor?
Well, that's, no.
Okay, but no, I mean,
I mean,
but do you think that a critical eye would notice these things and like, or just, what I was saying to Lloyd is, the issue is, we're debating, and Lloyd and I come on here a lot, and we're trying to like, you know, preach, and you're on here giving perspective, but I think the issue is, we're presenting a case to a jury that would never make the panel.
no. Well, here's
Right?
the thing. When I look at this picture, it's obvious that the guy's hungry. All right, if it's a legitimate picture, I mean, there's all these caveats
So
to
this
it.
is 100% a video. This is from a video.
I
this is
just
from a
don't
video.
They
know. I
put
haven't
this
seen
out.
it.
Hamas put this out. This is their propaganda. And just real quick, right before, they had him burying his own grave.
Digging,
Digging his own grave. But go ahead.
But, you know, I haven't seen this. I haven't really been paying as much attention to the news. So, I mean, I believe you that, you know, this is what you
I'm
were
not gonna lie to
told.
you, right.
Yeah.
This is
All
what
right?
they put out.
But
They put it out, by the way, on their, what's that international thing that people put out, with all the bad stuff?
Telegram?
Telegram. They put it out on their Telegram.
Okay, but here's the thing, and, you know, when we talked earlier.
This
all
is
right?
him. It's Eviatar David.
All right. When we were talking earlier, and you said, who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the United Nations, or are you going to believe the information Hamas puts out?
Right.
All right?
You mean
And
the
agreed
government of
that-
Israel, not the United Nations.
Okay. And, you know, so it's like, okay, so we don't believe what Hamas puts out. But now it's this, and everyone wants me to now believe what Hamas put out.
Well, because
Well, we know who this is.
We know who he is.
He's
and
been missing. We were trying to get him back.
and we've seen him before his condition before he went into the tunnels.
Yeah, I mean.
You just haven't, so you don't have the perspective.
It makes sense that they would treat him like this. Is not right. But again, I don't know anything about it. And so
you can't really
it's hard for me to, you know, I couldn't tell you if a picture's Photoshopped. I couldn't tell you what incentive people would have to do it. I tend to believe it. But it's like I said,
Well, the
just don't
incentive
believe-
is to terrorize the Israeli population. That's the whole point.
That's what it is.
That's
But
why they put
begs,
it out.
begs the question of why.
It's part of the psychological warfare.
Not,
It's like when
not on this, but why put out fake photos of famine
you just said it right there.
if it's so rampant? No,
Well,
we
the
know
question
why.
is-
Put out
the
fake
question
photos
is
of
why not
famine?
put out
Yeah.
real ones if there's
Yeah, if there's so many
such
of
a
them, why not put out
widespread-
real pictures of starving people?
If I knew why people did what they
Ah,
did,
just say, Dan, can you put up the photo of the journalist drinking salt, but with the full one? I want you to see this photo. Tell me,
mean, have you ever-
tell me
have-
if these
in a
people are
case,
starving
Danny,
and in a war zone.
have you ever sat
Do
there?
they look starving and in a war zone to you?
She's kind of fat.
Michael, that doesn't hold. He doesn't hold anything back. You know, look at them. This guy's. The other photo, you can see the guy's beard. It's the most groomed beard I've ever seen in my life. But they're
Yeah.
starving. They don't want to starve.
the
They're
buildings
drinking. They're
aren't
drinking
bombed out.
salt water. They're putting salt in their water for
But I mean, okay,
electrolytes.
this doesn't look like anything that you get that it's portrayed in the media because the hospital's not bombed out or whatever in the background not bombed out. All right, the press people are alive. There's no snipers shooting at them.
Yeah.
All right, and like I said,
There's
I
no
don't
snipers shooting at
Well, the
media.
point of this was to try to convince people that were watching that there's no food, and the only way that they can maintain their energy level is to drink salt water for the electrolytes.
This looks like a
Yet you
starvation photo.
Yet you have all of these, well-groomed, well-nourished, well-rested, potentially obese people.
Well, I can get
know,
one
that-
better than that. Drinking salt water will kill you.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But the unsuspecting, the ignorant are going to buy that hook, line, and sinker and say, "Oh my God, did you hear today that, the Palestinians are down to drinking salt water because there's no food?"
Well, that would be an excellent way for Israel to kill all of them.
Oh my goodness. Oh my. He said that, not us. So we're out of time.
Here,
Anybody-
drink this water, and it lasts a day or two before your electrolytes are all screwed up.
Anybody want to add anything? We got 2
David
minutes
was,
left.
Here he is. So Aviatar was here. They can't see that, but you
But it's
can.
okay.
So this is how he looked before October 7th, and that's how he looks now.
Yeah, it's researchable
Kidnapped
online.
from the Nova.
All right, I'm going to say something after this is off.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
you make the comment later. But
All right.
anybody else, we're good? Anybody want to add anything at last minute? Anything
No.
you want to touch on?
No.
All right, well, thank you guys for coming on. I love having you guys on all the time. I hope we have many more of these panels where we can discuss this in a fair way. This is a calm way to push back, give conversation, even though it's 2-on-1 with Michael. Maybe next time we'll have a 2-on-2, so it's a little bit even, but you don't mind that at all.
I'm used to
You like these
2-on-1 just
odds.
in a different way.
Oh,
you know,
Jesus.
so.
Here he goes again. Thank you to all the viewers and listeners. Thank you for watching Two Taps and Friends. Please like, subscribe to the channel. Like I say, if you like and subscribe to the channel, it gives us more juice, more energy. We can bring more panel members on. You can find us everywhere. Watch us on, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're everywhere. We also have Two Taps and Friends swag at the bottom, linked at the bottom. We also have, if you want to buy a free hostage thing, we're going to link the free hostage website at the bottom for you to purchase. Thank you guys. We appreciate you all listening. We love you all. See you next time. Goodbye. Cut.